So, sorry if I spoke a little fast in my last speech. There wasn't a word per minute suggestion, so it's more or less trial and error. But for this speech, I'll slow it down a little bit, have the text of what I say put up on YouTube, so you can read along if you want to, and only respond to the arguments that he brought up in his last speech, because that shows that he must have understood them to be able to respond to them. So I think that that's pretty fair. So first I want to define what an ecosystem is, because I don't think that's been done yet. Oxford Dictionary defines it as a biological community of interacting organisms and their physical environment. So the Japanese relation to the dolphin hunt is human being organisms interacting with other organisms, which are the dolphins, in their physical environment. And when he concedes that it's a tradition and has been around since 1969, we must see banning of it as a disruption to the ecosystem that's already in place. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing that they started doing it, that's irrelevant. Now that it's in place, it is the status quo of the ecosystem. And the harm that comes from disrupting it, it comes from when he points out that without seafood, people will starve, and considering that we don't know the effect of sudden dolphin proliferation after 50 years of slaughter, we should preserve this type of ecosystem because the lower species seem to have already adjusted to it, and if disrupting ecosystems are so bad, then we should leave this one in place. He talks about the top-down food chain. If human fishing has the potential to make entire species of dolphin extinct, then dolphin species have the potential, seeing as how they're a top predator, in his opinion, to make smaller species of fish extinct, which would mess up the food chain. So messing up the food chain is pretty non-unique. It's going to happen regardless. So he brings up this new impact of people starving. Coming out of the speech before that, his biggest impact was that there'll be a lot of jellyfish. You shouldn't evaluate new arguments, because I would have been able to point out in my last speech how it's contradictory to say that he's encouraging the UN to ban annual dolphin hunt because a lot of people are eating dolphin, but now he's saying that people depend on the seafood. So I think that's contradictory, and it presents him with a double bind. Either a lot of people eat dolphin, so the species goes extinct and there's no more food, or not a lot of people eat it, and so he doesn't get access to his high mercury content. And is eating dolphin good because people won't starve, or is eating it bad because of the high mercury content? It leads me to interpret what he believes is happening in the status quo as far as people's dependence on eating dolphin, and if it should stay the same or change, which causes a less specific debate and is bad for education. It's unfair for the affirmative to change interpretation of the status quo from speech to speech, much less bring up new impacts. So I'll accept the double turn. He says collapse of tropic systems will take seafood away from people. And since seafood has high mercury content, which sucks, the net benefit of not banning the dolphin hunt is good. So these people who would hypothetically starve could turn to farming as an alternative to fishing. If he wants to argue that people in these coastal areas are not able to farm, then banning the annual dolphin hunt would mean that these people wouldn't eat anyway and they'd actually starve, which is more immediate than an ecosystem collapse. So what have I told you today? First, I said that ecosystem has adapted to us fishing, and we shouldn't mess with that, and dolphins might proliferate and mess things up more. I've also told you that he brought up a new argument, and it's bad because it makes me choose which version of the status quo he actually believes, but it seems like it would keep potentially harmful mercury contamination away from people, so that's good. We should vote to end the dolphin hunt, or to not end it. And if people are dependent on seafood to live, and ending the dolphin hunt will cause them to starve. And even if you want to ignore the double turn and weigh just both of the impacts, you see they have the same magnitude of people starving, but you should prefer my time frame, because ending the dolphin hunt causes immediate starvation, whereas if species die off, we can in the meantime have alternative forms of food be found, because it's a more gradual process. Thanks for listening.